Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Fed Up, your no BS nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Marie, certified personal trainer and nutrition specialist, working with clients since 2014. After swimming up diet culture's bullshit stream for so many years, I am fed the absolute up with how miserable it's making people feel when we are supposed to be getting healthier. This podcast is here to help you gain your sanity back so you can stop yo-yoing once and for all and finally learn how to trust yourself so you can enjoy food again without fear or shame while still getting to your health goals. My aim is to teach you how to detect the BS in not just the food and diet industries, but in all realms of life, because I know that, like me, we are all just a little fed up. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. All right. I think it is something most of us can relate to, that point of time between lunch and dinner when your brain is turning off, our bodies want to do nothing but go lay down and take a nap. Why is it that we get so tired around 2, 3 p.m.? A lot of my clients wonder how to improve their alertness throughout the day. And oftentimes we think we should be energized 12, 16 hours a day. And when we're not, it is capitalized on and misinterpreted as you have fatigue, you have low energy due to your hormones or something like that. And then they pitch you a supplement. So we are going to go over today why the mid-afternoon slump occurs in the first place and how there's most likely nothing wrong with you if you're experiencing this, how to optimize your alertness and energy throughout the day before and after this very natural midday slump, and also what foods you can include more of into your diet to give you the best energy levels for your brain and your body. So let's get into it. First things that I will say is we've got to lean into the slump. We've got to accept the mid-afternoon slump. It is very normal for humans to experience a dip in the circadian rhythm between 2 and 4 p.m., even if you've had a great night of sleep the night before. So this is our natural circadian rhythm, 24 hours a day. We are sleepy at sunset and we're supposed to sleep, right? And then you get up when the sun rises. We're diurnal, I think that's how you say it, where we are awake during the day. But that does not mean we are supposed to have the same level of alertness, like this linear line throughout the day. Again, it is very normal to experience a dip in your circadian rhythm. Sometimes this happens a little bit later, sometimes earlier for different people. Different things can affect how strong that dip is, obviously. But first things first, nothing is wrong with you. All right? And even if you do have hormones that are affecting your energy levels, there is more to experiencing chronic fatigue than having a mid-afternoon slump or a nap. So there are other criteria that maybe you do hit. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people that don't hit those criteria. They are just experiencing this, mid-afternoon slump. So I wanted to just give yourself some grace and realize you're not meant to be awake with full alertness 16 hours a day. So with that, if you're able, try to sneak in a 20 to 40 minute nap a few times a week. It does wonders for also helping you sleep better later on at night, and it helps give you a second wind for the rest of the day. It helps your stress levels by letting your brain synthesize its information as it does when it sleeps to regulate your mood and things like that. Even if you don't fall into a deep sleep, being able to close your eyes, having a midday rest, that is still beneficial for you. It's the next best thing to meditation. And obviously, the first thing too is making sure that your sleep hygiene at night is appropriate and being able to have a bedtime routine, stay asleep, fall asleep, all of those things. If you need to be working with a doctor to actually improve your sleep other ways, that is an option, obviously, for if that applies to you and if you have access. But if there's something that you can do for yourself to improve your sleep hygiene, to stop procrastinating bedtime, that is the first place to start. But adding a midday rest or nap is also really beneficial, even if you have perfect sleep. And even if you don't, again, it is really okay to have that nap. Again, there is a limit or you can make yourself more tired if you take a 2-hour nap, but I am the nap queen. I have worked split shifts a lot being a trainer, so I got really good at taking a nap. And if you need to, again, have some caffeine in the morning, there's nothing wrong with that. But let's remember that caffeine does not give you energy. It blocks your perception of being tired. So your body has an internal clock, and one of the ways it knows how long it's been awake for is this buildup of a molecule called adenosine, or adenosine triphosphate is like ATP. That's where we get our energy from, all that good stuff. So adenosine is a building block for a lot of different things in your body, and one of the ways that your brain knows how long it's been awake for. So caffeine binds to your adenosine receptors, and you don't realize how tired you are. That's why as soon as the caffeine wears off, you get like this bombardment of adenosine, and you're like, oh my God, I could fall asleep while driving. So that being said, accept the slump. Don't fight it. Don't try to just fight it with an espresso, but maybe have an espresso and then take a 20-minute nap. And now that the caffeine has hit your system, you're also well rested. There's a lot of little ways that you can hack the nap system. So with caffeine, again, there's nothing wrong with having a cup of coffee in the morning or even an energy drink, but I would say watch your timing with it, right? If you are just relying on caffeine to get through the day and then you have it pretty late in the day, it's going to affect your sleep and just snowball into the next thing. So there are ways to give your brain energy that are not just blocking its perception of being tired, which we will talk about. So that's where I want to start, is giving you the permission to be tired. And if you're sedentary too, like if you have a desk job and you are working from, 8 to 12, sedentary behavior is going to make you more tired. Movement begets movement, and it's harder to get moving when you have been in one position for too long. Traveling, being in a classroom, desk jobs, things like that are going to slow down your, momentum, let's say. So that's another thing, is finding ways to, stand up and move around throughout your day that isn't just like a structured workout routine. That can help give you give you energy for when you do sit down and have to concentrate, or you're trying to, get something done after work. If you've been moving throughout the day, it's going to be much easier for you to do that. So the second thing that we'll talk about is eating. Obviously, that is how we get our energy. So I want you to eat breakfast and lunch and front load your calories and eat enough calories. Why? Because eating breakfast is going to help regulate your blood sugar. When you get a steady stream of glucose, which is your brain's energy source, it cannot use anything else for energy, only glucose, which, yes, that is sugar. It is a monosaccharide that is what's fueling your brain. So you want a steady stream of glucose to your brain, to your muscles, because that's, again, if you think about what's giving you energy and what's able to, get you to move, is having energy in your muscles and having energy in your system that wants to be used, and you can use it. So if you have quick, simple, what we call naked carbohydrates, right? Like very simple saccharides, glucose, or quote unquote, a simple sugar or a naked carbohydrate by itself, it doesn't have any protein or fat with it, you're going to get that in your system pretty quickly. So it's going to be out of your system pretty quickly, is kind of how I look at it. And so you want to pair your carbohydrates in the morning with some fiber, some protein, some fat, because that's going to slow down the digestion of those carbohydrates and, again, regulate your blood sugar throughout the morning, rather than experiencing this huge spike and then this huge crash because you had nothing to slow down the digestion of those carbohydrates. So if you're used to just having a piece of toast or just having some fruit or having, again, something very simple like a donut, try to add in maybe a protein shake or some Greek yogurt, or choosing a bar like that has protein, carbs, and fats rather than a Pop-Tart. So there's ways to kind of just add to what you're already doing. If you're like a grab and go type of person, you're like, well, I'm not going to cook myself a full breakfast every morning. That's okay. There are ways to include protein, fat, and fiber without necessarily having to cook yourself a 3-course meal. So having yourself a good full, complete meal as breakfast is going to give you the energy to your brain and last you till lunch, hopefully. Maybe have a mid-morning snack. It's okay to eat multiple times in the morning. So having the energy to your brain is what's going to give you the energy to do the things, to concentrate, to regulate your mood, to make decisions, and to have the energy to want to get up more and want to go work out or whatever it may be. Like when you're talking about, I want to get more energy, a lot of times we're not eating enough during the day. And then later at night, you might overeat because you didn't eat enough earlier. So front loading your calories earlier in the day is actually shown to help reduce that amount of like mindless snacking and late night, quote unquote, binging that often happens. So even if you're not hungry, I know ghrelin, that's your hunger hormone, is lowest in the morning because evolutionarily speaking, you've got to wake up and go find food. So ghrelin will increase later in the day. So even if you're not hungry, sometimes we have to eat, especially if you've been like ignoring your hunger for a long amount of time or you're used to fasting and your body kind of expects food at certain times if you have a regular, time that you feed it. So if you're not feeding yourself in the morning, it's not going to get hungry right away. As soon as you start feeding yourself in the morning, you might actually experience more hunger when you wake up too, which is okay. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with you. So eat your breakfast, have a little mid-morning snack, have a complete lunch, have a full lunch. I know there are so many people that are trying to eat like some cottage cheese and peaches or like just a salad or like the smallest amount of food for lunch. And then you wonder why like you're so tired at 2 p.m. because you don't have anything in your system. So give yourself something to, again, fuel your brain because breakfast is over now. And just mind that if you have a heavier lunch, then your body is going to want to rest and digest because you just fed it and now it has some work to do on the inside. So a heavier lunch is going to make you feel a little more sleepy. It's totally normal. If you are increasing your protein or your fiber content or you had certain fermentable carbs like broccoli, you might experience some bloating. So a lot of times people will eat really healthy and they're like, why am I so bloated? And it's probably because you are not used to eating that amount of fiber, or you might be sensitive to more fermentable carbs like beans and broccoli and things like that. So this is very individualized and there's not one blanket way to eat for everybody. However, sometimes those healthier foods just take a little bit of getting used to and a slower introduction. Like don't just be having bean soup all of a sudden every single day when you haven't had beans in 2 years. So this might feel a little bit like a learning curve, and that's okay. So again, fiber, protein, complex carbohydrates, they're going to fill you up a little bit more than maybe something that you're used to that's more processed, that has a lot higher calories, but lower in protein, lower in fiber, lower in those even micronutrients. And now you're like, but I can eat this and I'm not bloated. So again, there's different factors here, but in general, most people are going to benefit from having that complete lunch, or even, again, splitting your lunch into 2 so you eat twice in the afternoon. That is totally normal. And sometimes you have to start to regulate your meal times to regulate your appetite. Sometimes that happens first before you can tune into those hunger and fullness cues that we talk about with intuitive eating, versus some people will just like, well, if I wait till I'm hungry, then I'm not really hungry until 3 p.m., but now I'm tired, I have a headache, I'm irritable at my coworkers, I have no energy, so I'm going to have a cup of coffee and like a Snickers bar, and then I'm going to get like fast food on my way home, and then you end up like eating a bunch of snacks while you're while you're cooking dinner, you're eating a bunch of snacks, or you have more snacks after dinner. Like it does have this cascade effect, and sometimes we just have to play around with it. So again, don't take this as like another food rule is you have to eat this for breakfast or lunch, but like we have to find what's actually going to work well for you. And sometimes there is that little bit of a learning curve. So I just like to give that, disclaimer there. So that being said, the third thing here is what to actually eat to give your body energy besides just, making sure that you're eating. So vitamin Bs are really important for energy, iron, electrolytes like sodium, potassium, magnesium, and then also like omega-3s for brain function, lower inflammation, better response to stress, things like that, and carbohydrates. Those are what's going to give you energy, okay? If you are about to go work out or you're feeling lightheaded because you haven't eaten, don't eat an avocado. Like, you don't have access to that energy immediately. So carbohydrates are what give you energy immediately. Again, pairing them with things like fiber, protein, fat is going to slow down the release of that energy, regulate your blood sugar a little bit more. So it's all about complementary foods. I am always a little bit cautious warning someone like when they want to cut out meat or cut out carbs, because you're cutting out your vitamin Bs, your iron, you're cutting out a lot of your potassium if you cut out like certain carbohydrates. So when we cut out entire food groups, a lot of times people will experience a complete drop in energy levels. So if you're trying to function on a low carb diet, or you cut out dairy and whole grains because someone said to cut out dairy and gluten, and dairy was a huge, protein giver. It was a huge protein giver for your diet. Yeah, no, you got a lot of protein from dairy in your diet, but now you don't. So you're not getting your iron and you're not getting the muscle protein synthesis that's supposed to be happening when you are lifting weights. So now your body's just like eating your muscle. So there are things that we want to be very, mindful of. And if you are low on vitamin Bs or iron, if you're anemic, you'll most likely know that, but hopefully you can get tested for that. And you want to be eating meat, fish, eggs, milk, yogurt, beef, leafy greens and whole grains, fortified grains, legumes, liver. This is why beef organ supplements claim to give people energy, because the liver is going to be giving you some B vitamins, some iron, some omegas, all that good stuff. And if you don't actually enjoy eating organs or liver, I think that could be probably a good alternative, but they are fairly expensive. And they do claim to heal all your hormone problems, which is just marketing. But if they contain a bunch of B vitamins, yay, all the more power to you. But it's unregulated. It's not proven to do anything. Just, eat your meat. However, obviously, red meat, having too much of it can increase risks of cardiovascular disease. So we do want to be complementing our protein with enough fiber, with those whole grains, with the legumes and beans and leafy greens and things like that. So when I say iron and B vitamins, a lot of people just go to meat, but it's all of these foods together that actually is going to give you your best vitamin profile. So you also want to limit alcohol, which is going to interfere with certain vitamin absorption. And of course, hangovers, even minor ones, are going to affect your energy levels. By the way, if you have a real vitamin deficiency, a lot of times you'll have neurological problems or extreme symptoms if it's pretty, deficient. Or again, anemia, you're going to feel very, very fatigued, very cold. There's a couple of symptoms that obviously you can go and get a blood panel for, and then you'll know what supplements you should be taking or what kind of foods you should be adding even more of. But this is just an overall general list, right? So for most people to get these vitamins, meat, eggs, fish, beans, whole grains. You also want to be pairing your iron foods with vitamin C foods like citrus, tomatoes, broccoli even, because that's what's going to help the absorption of iron. People don't tell you that. Magnesium and other electrolytes. So yes, you want to watch sodium from overly processed foods, ready-made foods, takeout, things like that have a lot of sodium in them. But if you completely cut out your sodium, your muscles and nervous system will not work. So salt your veggies. That's totally fine. Make sure that you're drinking enough water, but if you're overhydrating, you're going to drown your electrolytes and experience the same type of medical emergency that happens with extreme dehydration, because your cells will swell with water and burst. And yeah, anyway, bad news bears there. So balancing your electrolytes with water intake and salt and magnesium is important. And then omega-3s are super, super underrated. Fish, chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, soy, eggs, canola oil, sardines, trout, all that good stuff. That's really good for brain health, lowering inflammation, great for hormones, especially for women. But again, if you're looking at overall diet, it's not that you just need to consume these foods. Just try to find ways to sprinkle them in throughout your week, and you'll get a nice, well-rounded diet. Your body is really good at extracting vitamins and figuring out how to use those things. So look at your weekly diet more so than you look at like every single day trying to be perfect. So zoom out a little bit, look at your weekly, if you're getting really drunk over the weekends, then of course, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're not going to feel like you have a lot of energy because your body's still recovering from alcohol. If you're noticing that some days you eat a lot of vegetables and then other days you eat nothing, then you're going to experience these cycles of energy. So try to be consistent throughout the week rather than trying to be perfect one day, or again, kind of like yo-yoing behaviors of like eating fish and eggs and trout really, a lot throughout the week and then like spending weeks not eating a single whole food. So that's what we're trying to aim at, is just incorporating more of these foods consistently. So anyway, we'll end you there. I hope that helps a little bit to give you some insight in, maybe why you're experiencing this slump and some things that you can do about it aside from just taking a nap. But getting a diverse diet, eating your meat and beans and leafy greens and omegas is all really, really important. But also understanding that you're going to be tired between 2 and 4, and that's okay. Some cultures have 2 to 4 hour lunch breaks because of it, right? We are just in such a 9 to 5 world over here in America. So that can make it really challenging. Or if you have children and you're like, what do you mean I can just take a nap in the middle of the day? Haha, you're funny. So obviously do what you can as you can. But I hope that this episode helped you think about how to optimize your energy. And I hope you get to take a nap this week. Thanks for being here. I will chat at you next time. Bye. Thanks so much for being here, friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot and tag me over on Instagram or leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening from. Your support means the world to me and only helps me get the No BS news out to more people. If you're interested in working with me in nutrition or personal training, check out my programs and courses on my website at kaylamariefitness.com and on Instagram at kaylamarie_fit. See you next week.